Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Facebook Live session. It is so wonderful to be with you this evening. My name is Heath Einstein, and I am Dean of Admission at TCU. And this is the second in our series of Facebook Live sessions. We did one last month, and the topic then was campus visits and standardized test scores. And we had such a great response that we decided to come back and do it again this month. So tonight, our session is on scholarship and financial aid. And that's always a big topic people want to know about. And so this evening, we have a very special guest with us. And that is Victoria Chen, who is our Director of Financial Aid. Hi, Victoria.
Hey, greetings from the Financial Aid Office at TCU.
It's so good to see you. It's great to be with you tonight.
It's great to be with you too.
We've never done this before together. We see each other all the time, but it's really cool to be able to do this event live. And we have already so many folks who are signed in and they're with us this evening. I see we've got Jay from Illinois and Trudy from Manhattan Beach, California, native Californian. So love that. Good to see you, Trudy. We've got, let's see, Terry from Waco, Todd from Frisco. We've got Rebecca from Idaho and Aaliyah from Delaware and so many others who have joined us today. So it's really, really cool to have everyone with us. I hope you'll stay with us for our time together. We have a lot to cover tonight. So just a little bit of a brief intro before we get to your questions. First of all, before we do any of our programming, we always start in the TCU Office of Admission with a land acknowledgement. We do that when our visitors come to campus, just because we're not on campus together right now, although Victoria is on campus, doesn't mean we can't do our land acknowledgement because we are grateful for the space that we inhabit. We're especially grateful and respectful of the Wichita and affiliated tribes upon whose ancestral homeland we sit. And we're grateful for all Native peoples and the land that we have. So with that, let's jump into it. Why we're doing this. We do these events because we want to be where you are. We want to answer all of your questions. We know that there are lots of questions out there about a range of topics. This format in particular seems to be very successful. It's completely unscripted. I don't know what I'm going to say from one sentence to the next. Hopefully I make sense. I'll talk for a few minutes on the scholarship process at TCU. Victoria's going to talk for a few minutes about the need-based financial aid process. We have already gotten great questions from you in advance because we have posted on social media that we were going to be doing this. So through Instagram, many questions have come in. We're going to try to get to as many of those as possible. And please do interface with us, engage, ask questions, and we'll try to get to as many as we can. I want to also, just from the start, a couple of folks who are working behind the scenes, you don't see right now, but Amy Peterson in the university's marketing and communication office and Liz Rainwater, who's our director of admission, marketing and communication, are working feverishly behind the scenes to make sure that this all goes off without a hitch. So thanks to you all. Okay, so let's start by talking a little bit about the scholarship process and how it works. First of all, at TCU, when students apply for admission and we admit them to the university, they're automatically going to be considered for academic scholarship. So there's no extra paperwork that we're going to require of you. We're looking at the same kinds of credentials that we see when we're looking at students for admission. We're also using those to evaluate students for academic scholarship. And as the name suggests, academic scholarship, those decisions are based on a student's academic credentials. So it's not money that we're giving to students for being great athletes or being great leaders. I mean, there are all sorts of scholarships that the university has, but from an academic scholarship standpoint, we're using those credentials. Specifically, the students' grades, the curriculum that they have chosen for themselves over the course of 4 years of high school, and we really do look at that 4 years, not just classes you chose your junior and senior year, but from 9th grade through 12th grade. And we're looking at the school because every student comes from a different school environment. There are different courses that are being offered at different schools. So if you go to a high school where 6 APs are offered and you've taken 4 of them, you're not going to be penalized because someone else went to a school that had 25 APs and they took 10 of them. So we're really trying to contextualize our understanding of each individual student. That works for admission, and it also works for academic scholarship. The first piece of that, as I mentioned, are the grades. And so we always use something that we internally call an AGPA, an academic GPA. And the reason why we do that is because every high school has a different way of creating a grade point average for a student. Some schools use a 100-point scale, other schools use a 5-point scale, some schools use an 11-point scale. We have this sort of standardized way that we do it. We use a traditional 4-point scale where an A is worth 4 points, a B is worth 3 points, etc. And we will look only at a student's core academic subjects. So we're going to strip away, the A that you got in PE, although that's very important, and we want you to ace all of your classes. When it comes to the calculation of an academic GPA for which academic scholarship can be earned, we're looking just at those core academic subject areas. Okay. And then we're also taking out the any weighting that you may have been given. Now, we sort of put that back in when we evaluate students' curriculum, a student's curriculum. As I mentioned before, we're looking contextually at every school. The reason why we take out weighting is because every high school does it differently. And we want to be able to evaluate students evenly sort of across the board. So everyone will have this internal calculation that we've come up with. It's part of why it's really difficult for us to be able to provide you a specific answer. But when you look on our website, like some colleges, they'll have like matrices up there and it says, okay, if you've got X GPA and Y test score, this is the scholarship you're going to get. Because we take the time to really evaluate each student individually, it's hard for us, it would be impossible for us to provide for you that same matrix. What we do have on our website is the average GPA and test scores if you took test scores, if you took the test, and we know that, well, the whole last year has been very different and we're test optional moving forward for the next 2 years, as we talked about last month. But we can give you an indication of what might happen, but it is not an ironclad offer because it would be really impossible for us to do that. But it's a good indicator of what kind of academic scholarship you might be able to get. So we will actually give students a scholarship offer with their offer of admission. This is seen in the portal. So when a student applies to TCU, after we've had an opportunity to evaluate the application, we will send you electronic notification that it's time to check your portal, your decision is available. And inside the portal, not only would you see your offer of admission, but you would also see if a scholarship is awarded, you'd see that scholarship letter right there. There are times when students feel like, I just know I should have gotten a scholarship. Can I appeal that? And the answer is yes, you can. We always try to be forthright with students that usually the offer that we've gone out with is the offer we have gone out with. But there are times when additional information that was not available at the time the application was submitted that could be helpful for us in looking at and reviewing a student for scholarship. So as an example, let's say you were admitted to TCU in our non-binding early action round, okay? And we typically notify students of their admission decision and scholarship decision for early action in mid-December, so around December 15th, okay? And let's say you were not awarded an academic scholarship. But at that point, of course, we did not have your first semester grades from senior year. It's possible then after your first semester's over, you could say to us, hey, I did great my first semester senior year. I got a 4.0. It totally boosted my cumulative GPA. I think maybe I'm now in the range. Would you take another look? And we're happy to do that. Again, usually it doesn't change things, and that's because one additional semester of grades on top of the first 6 semesters of grades typically doesn't move that cumulative needle all that much. But we're always happy to look if, again, you're able to provide some new information. If it's just, hey, pretty pleased with the cherry on top of it, I really want a scholarship, that's probably not going to yield additional scholarship dollars from the university. Sometimes, even with a significant increase in academic performance that might otherwise warrant some additional scholarship money, we might say no because Victoria and her amazing financial aid team have already put together a financial aid package that includes dollars where if we were to award you more academic scholarship, all that would do is reduce the amount of the need-based aid you're already getting. So so the devil's in the details, and we always try to be really upfront with students and transparent and walk them through this process on a case-by-case basis. Now, often we'll get questions from students around this time of year as all of their admission decisions have come in from their colleges. Hey, I got into 7 schools and TCU is my top choice, and TCU is the only school that didn't give me a scholarship. Why is that? And there are a few different reasons why that could be. One reason is because every college is different and every college employs different scholarship and aid strategies. So just as an example, one school might say, we plan to give 50% of our admitted students an academic scholarship, and they're all going to get big scholarships. And another school with a similar aid budget might say, we're going to give 85% of the admitted students scholarships, but we're going to give them all smaller scholarships. Okay, so sometimes there are different strategies at play. Sometimes there are different budgets. One school might have $100 million to give away, another school might have $40 million to give away. And so even if your credentials are identical, it might mean that at one school you're not able to get a scholarship, and another school you are. And then finally, every school has a different applicant pool. You might look like the very top scholar in one applicant pool, and in a completely different set of students, you might look like, you might be sort of in the midpoint or in the lower half of the students who got in from an academic standpoint. And doesn't mean you're not a great student because you got in, and we know that TCU is a really selective and competitive place, and that's great. But it might just mean that even though your academic credentials are identical, the pool of student in which you sit could be different, and that could yield different results as well. So lots of different factors that are considered. I do want to mention how scholarships played out a little bit differently this year. As you know, last month we talked about the test optional policy that TCU has. And so we had to evaluate essentially students who could look very different within the same applicant pool, right? So a student might have had a test score or they might not have had a test score. And as we said from the very beginning, and we have demonstrated this empirically, and you saw some graphics last time, that we really did not want to, nor did we end up penalizing students who didn't submit test scores. We knew and know that students who do high level work in strong classes can do great work at TCU. And so we certainly didn't want to penalize students who didn't have an opportunity to sit for an exam. Not only did that occur in the admission process, but also for academic scholarship. And I think last time we showed some graphics about how much money we did give away, even for students who opted not to have their tests. We call it the do no harm policy, as I mentioned, and the numbers bear out that that the students were indeed given scholarships, even if not all students, but it didn't preclude a student from earning a scholarship. We also want to mention to you that you shouldn't limit your scholarship search just to the institution. I think very often students think about, can I get a scholarship from this school that I applied to? And yes, that's a great thing to consider. And you want to investigate as you're researching colleges, what are the scholarship strategies that are employed at the school, but don't discount the importance of seeking external sources of funding. One great website that I always like to talk about is called fastweb.com. It's a scholarship repository that it's a searchable website, searchable database that you can use. You can plug in all sorts of information about yourself, and it will pop up different scholarships that you might be eligible for. Some of them are small, some of them are large. And it might feel like at times you're searching for a needle in the haystack, but believe me, with the cost of college today, you definitely want to build up as much scholarship money as you can to help offset that climbing cost. There are also other ways that funding can become available to students once they enroll at the university. So a couple of examples. We offer a $3,000 stipend for students to be in our marching band. You don't even have to be a music major, but if you can play an instrument, a marching band instrument, or if you can stand there and hold an instrument while you're walking across the field, that's a joke. No, if you can play an instrument, then you may be eligible for dollars there. For our returning students, you might choose to be a resident assistant, an RA in one of our residence halls, starting as early as your second year at TCU, and that helps offset the cost of housing, of room and board, because there's stipends available for that. There is a website that we have developed at TCU. It's our Horned Frog Scholar search, and the site is tcu.academicworks.com. It is a wonderful searchable site that provides information for students about scholarships that are available at TCU that are sort of past the point of the admission and initial academic scholarship process. This is an investment in your future. There is no question about it. College is not inexpensive. I was talking to a dad the other day, and he was telling me, I can't believe how expensive college has become. He's in his mid-40s. He said 25 years ago, when he was in school, it cost him about $5,000 to go to school. There are some colleges that are I suppose that still cost that, but most of us don't cost that. And certainly schools like TCU are expensive, but we have opportunities for you to for this process to become more affordable. And so that's why we're really glad that you're here tonight to learn more about it. And we would encourage you to investigate more. The other thing is, and Victoria's going to talk a little bit about this, the goal shouldn't be to pay nothing. I mean, college isn't free, and there is something to the idea of having some skin in the game in this process. And so to the parents out there, I think there are a couple of conversations you're going to want to have with your students. One is talk about the family's financial commitment to this endeavor, this college endeavor. What are you able to pay versus what are you willing to pay? And those are not always the same thing. You might have the financial wherewithal to pay the full tuition at an expensive university, but you might not be willing to pay. That's okay, but be upfront with your students about that, what you're willing to do. Are you willing to forego family vacations for a couple of summers in order to help make this work, or are you not? And it's okay if the answer is no, but the hardest conversations I have with students are not, I didn't get in and TCU is my dream school and how am I gonna move on? Those are difficult and not fun, don't get me wrong. The actually harder for me is when a student has worked really hard, has gotten into TCU, we're the dream school, and they realize at the end of the day, they just can't make it work financially. Those are really hard conversations to have. And so if you can have those conversations at the outset, parents, ask your students, what do you expect to pay and contribute to this process? And I would say, I would include the inputs as in the money. What dollar amount do you think you are going to contribute to this, if any at all? And the outputs. What are the grades going to be for this investment? You know, what are the expectations on both sides in terms of money and grades? And then have a conversation about what's realistic, put together a budget together. And I would encourage families to have that conversation as early as possible. And I'm talking about in 9th and 10th grade. Don't wait to senior year if you can if you can avoid it, to have that conversation. Okay, I've already spoken for far too long. And I want to invite Victoria to chime in here about the need-based process. There's a lot to it, and then we'll get to everyone's questions. So Victoria, hello again.
Thank you, Heath. I'm so honored to be a part of this wonderful discussion regarding scholarships and financial aid, along with our Dean of Admission. As a parent of college-age students, I recognize that this is a very exciting time for our students and families, but also understand that there's a lot of emotions going on. Just personally, this coming fall, our family will be sharing a similar journey to many of yours as our youngest child will be a rising junior in high school. So even after 23 years in higher education and financial aid, I find that the difference in the aid process from college to college is somewhat daunting. And so I'm hoping that the information that we share today will help ease some of that stress and help you navigate the financial aid process and the landscape, and help you formulate some of the questions to ask of the colleges on your list of considerations. And I know we have limited time, and we might not get to all of your questions. So please send your inquiries to our office. You can email us at finaid@tcu.edu, and a member of our team will be happy to get in touch with you. So I'd like to go through a series of questions that we tend to get the most in our office. And the first one is, what types of aid are available and what do we need to do to be considered for grant or need-based scholarship funding? Aid offers come from various sources: federal, state, institution, private foundations and organizations. The FAFSA, or free application for federal student aid, is generally, it is the application that is used to determine eligibility for federal and state grant. For students who are Texas resident, who are ineligible to complete the FAFSA, you'll need to complete the TASFA. And that information is on our website, a link to both of those applications. In addition to federal and state grant funding, universities and colleges may also offer institutional aid. In order to ensure that available funding is allocated strategically to meet enrollment goals, a number of schools utilize an alternate application besides the FAFSA. So please check with your school. At TCU, in addition to the FAFSA and the TASFA, we utilize an application administered by the College Board. It is the CSS profile, and it helps us to really give us a comprehensive view of a family's finance, as it takes into consideration your income, your asset, age of parents, protecting certain income and asset as parents come closer to retirement age, demographic, home value. The CSS profile allows for the sharing of special situations which may affect a family's ability to assist with students' college costs. You can report that. There's a comment section in there, and I do read those comments. It takes a lot of time, but I do read those comments. Data reported helps us to better understand a family's financial need and offer support where we're able to. Now, the important takeaway on the CSS profile or alternate application is it provides access to institutional funds, which will help lower the net price. And you'll hear the terminology throughout your college search. It's important because what I'd like for you to take away, if anything else regarding this process, is that don't eliminate an institution from your list of prospective college based on the sticker price or cost alone. An institution with a higher cost may offer more aid, which in essence may bring your overall net cost down to a comparable amount. And in order to calculate net price, you take the total cost of tuition, room and board, and books, and subtract any grants and scholarship offered. This allows for ease in comparing the cost among college aid offers. And those can be difficult to compare. But if you look at just the net price between the various institutions that you're applying to, then you have a better way to make decisions that are not only based on finance. I recognize that finance is very, very important, but that kind of leverage that platform for you to be able to make that financial decision for your family and your student. Okay. And as a reminder, the FAFSA and the CSS profile will open up for submission October 1 of the student's senior year. Okay. So my other question that I get all the time is, why should I apply? My income is too high. Applying for aid gives your student the opportunity to be evaluated for available resources. At TCU, the CSS profile, I mean, we offered $53.6 million in funding for grants and scholarship for our incoming class this year. So that's a lot of money on the table to be considered for. And another example as to why you should apply is that this past year, we received scholarship funding from a very generous donor, which allowed TCU to allocate aid to families who just fell outside of the financial need range. So considerations were made to students who applied for aid. And if you didn't apply for aid, you wouldn't have been considered regardless. Scholarships from internal and external resources may designate unique criteria identified through the application process. And so that's another resource that your student may be missing out if an application is not available. What else? Things happen. Life-altering situations, right? Loss of income, separation, divorce, a pandemic. Those are things that may temporarily affect a family's ability to pay. So aid application will allow the financial aid office to review those important special circumstances and use professional judgment to help assist your families in time of need. Okay. And another question I get all the time, and it's a prominent question. I'm not interested in loans. So how do I proceed with this process? I will admit this is a difficult subject, but this statement is one we often hear from families. Loans are valuable resources for many students and families who are unable to supplement personal income and asset for paying for college. Responsible borrowing is an important aspect of our goal at TCU. We're very intentional in our advising of students regarding loan debt. Whenever we're able to, we will offer funding to reduce loan debts for students. A number of years ago, I remember we were able to use available funding in our aid budget that wasn't awarded to students and offer institutional aid to reduce loan debt for some of our graduating students. It was a pleasant surprise for those groups of students. So I'm very excited that TCU is able to do things like that for our students, to recognize that we don't want you to take on more loans than necessary, but sometimes those are resources that may help you to supplement when you need that. So all in all, the decision regarding college financing is very important, and it really depends on each and every family's financial situation. My advice, similar to Heath, is that as you consider college choices and the college to apply to, have that open conversation early on with your student. What are you as a family willing to commit to? What are your expectations for your students? Outline these goals, and please outline these goals for 4 years and not just year one. What we find is that we have families who have planned wonderfully for year one, but not have the resources for year 2, 3, and 4, and so on. So those are recommendations that I think are so important, is having that open conversation with your students, and it helps minimize the stress for your student and allow him or her to focus on academic and student experience. So I'm going to leave it there because I think I've shared plenty with you, and I'd like to address some of the questions that you're sending through. But again, I know that you will have individualized questions that are unique to your family and your situations. So please reach out to our team. We're here to help answer the questions and help you navigate what may seem like a daunting process, but it really isn't. We promise.
And I can say this without bias. Well, that's not true. It's not unbiased, but it's probably not as biased as you might be, Victoria. We have the most caring financial aid advisors around.
Oh, thank you.
They truly are invested. I think that's an important word here. Invested in the success of our students and all of our families. So you will be treated very well, very professionally by our team here. So let's get to your questions. I mean, we have a lot of great questions out there. I want to start with a question that came in via Instagram from S. George Sink, who asked, "Explain Raise Me. I thought I earned additional scholarship money, but it doesn't seem so." So for those who are not familiar, Raise Me is a micro scholarship site. They have college partners. TCU is one of them, and we've been a partner with Raise Me for a long time. And it offers scholarships for particular achievements or accomplishments, and those are determined at the college level. In other words, TCU might decide we're going to give you $100 for every A you earn, and some other college might say we're going to give you $150 for every A you earn. But you can go on the Raise Me site and you can register, and you can see exactly what it is that we would give you money for. It is something that you can accumulate throughout high school. And actually throughout college, for students who are thinking about transferring to TCU, there is a relatively new transfer platform on RaiseMe as well. And what we do with that is we guarantee that no matter what happens, if you're admitted to TCU, you meet the minimum qualifications, you will be guaranteed at least that minimum amount. So if you're a student who, through the micro scholarship site RaiseMe, earned $3,000, and you wouldn't have, under normal conditions, earned an academic scholarship from TCU, we will still give you $3,000 because you have banked that, and you know going into the process. So it's a great way to, over the course of one's high school or early college career, to be able to see that money start rolling in, and can serve as a motivation for you to continue to do really well, both in and out of the classroom. There are micro scholarships that are even available for certain co-curricular accomplishments. So it's not all in the classroom. What we say is that will be the minimum amount. If through the academic scholarship process you are awarded a larger amount from TCU, then that's the amount that you would get, which could account for the confusion perhaps that students sometimes see. Hey, I thought I was getting $3,000 or $4,000. You are. We rolled it into that academic scholarship that we gave you, our Founders Award at $12,000 a year, or our TCU scholarship, or something like that. Okay, so that's the first question. Okay, next I'm going to throw it to you, Victoria. Temi_OG asks, can you contest a financial aid decision? What is that process like?
Hi, Temi. So contesting is a huge word.
Right, I saw that too.
We take great care in reviewing the data that you provide us through the Fafsa, the TASFA, as well as the CSS profile. So your aid package, your aid offer, we take great care in providing you the best package available. Now, we recognize that sometimes the data within those applications may not reflect a student's current situation or family's current situation. Those are the points where definitely reach out to the financial aid office. We have a special circumstance process for situations that are unique. Like I mentioned before, divorce situations, loss of income, death in the family, different things like that we would be happy to sit down with you and your family to just review everything to make sure that our offer is based on your current situation. So please reach out to our office. Now, we do not want you to go through that process if no change will occur. So most of the time what we'll do is we'll have you have an advisor reach out to you, evaluate your situation just to make sure, should we proceed? And if we do proceed and not waste your time, will this make a difference in the aid package that you receive? So certainly reach out to our team regarding your situation. And thank you for asking that question.
I've got another one for you, Victoria, and this one is from Joanna, 5891 on Instagram, who asked, are you able to take out student loans if you do not have credit or a cosigner?
So the answer, Joanna, is yes and no. It depends on the types of loans. For example, loans that are offered through the federal programs, the direct loans, federal unsubsidized, subsidized, parent loan requires a cosigner or credit, but the student loan, the unsubsidized loan and the subsidized loan does not require a credit check or a cosigner. Now, if you apply for private loans, such as, I know one student had mentioned the CAL loan, which is the college access loan. So I'm kind of hitting two birds with the same stone, is that it's the college access loan is a loan provided by the state of Texas. Okay, so it is a state loan and it has really great interest and terms. But those loans are considered private loans, and there are credit check components tied to that. And if you're not able to pass the credit check, then a cosigner would be required. So yes, you can for federal loans. For private loans, that may be different.
Okay, that is excellent information. Okay, next, WYVA on Instagram asks, if I'm applying for financial aid as an international student, will it reduce the acceptance rate? So let me talk for a minute about how our international applicant pool is a little bit different from our domestic international pool. International students do need to demonstrate some ability to pay in order for them to even be considered for admission to the university. And we'll have you fill out sort of a pre-form to see if you qualify. And the reason for that is because we have a policy that the maximum aid award we're going to give to international students, and not that every international student gets this, but the maximum award would cover tuition, not the full cost of attendance. So there has to be some demonstration of an ability to pay the difference between cost of attendance and admission. Once we clear that hurdle, then of course international students are eligible for funding, some funding, and for the most part, aid is not taken into consideration when we're making admission decisions. There does become a point in our process for the international students, particularly as we get toward the end of the application cycle, where we might consider a student's need because we have a limited budget for our international student population. Victoria, would you have anything to add to that?
I forgot to mention the CSS profile is required for international students for the need-based consideration. We have a domestic application, then there's an international, and you can reach that through our website as well.
Wonderful. Veronica Flores asks, does the net price calculator on the TCU site give an accurate amount for the most part? And I like how she phrased that question. It sounds like maybe she has some experience working with net price calculators on different colleges' websites.
So hi, Veronica. Glad to have you with us today. Yes, the information is as accurate as the information you provide. Okay, so what you put in, if you, and be precise with the information that you enter into the net price calculator, because I've had a parent who entered different information and asked me, well, why did it not produce the same outcome once I received the award notification? And we are able to go back in and kind of look through your data points that you've entered and do a comparison to assist you. But what you enter will, as good as the information you enter, the output will be just as accurate. Okay.
Wonderful. Thank you for that. Okay. Jamie Banks on Facebook says the criteria on the website for the Chancellor, Dean, Faculty, and TCU scholarships are those minimums or averages. Those are averages, not minimums. And I'm glad you asked about that, Jamie, because we haven't talked about the Chancellor Scholarship. The Chancellor Scholarship is a full tuition scholarship that is given for students who a select group of students who interview for the Chancellor Scholars Program. So it's not just a scholarship, it's an actual program that the university has. It's a 4-year cohort program, and students are selected based primarily on their academic credentials, but also the other things that we look at when we're reviewing students for admission. So sort of at a bare minimum, a student has to be among the top academic students, and then within that small group, we will invite roughly 150 students, and keep in mind we'll have an applicant pool of about 20,000 this year. We will invite about 150 students to interview for the Chancellor Scholarship, which is our full tuition scholarship. And so you can imagine, given the drastic differences between those numbers, that the students who are invited will have very, very strong grades. If they take tests and submit them, they'll have strong test scores. And they'll be leaders on their campus and just truly outstanding students all the way around. I also want to point out, though, just because you have strong grades and other credentials doesn't mean necessarily you're going to be selected to interview. Because often we'll get questions around the time when we start sending out those invitations. Well, my friend got invited and I didn't, but I also have a 3.98 GPA and took 6 AP classes and et cetera, et cetera. There are many other students who sort of meet those averages, but still aren't selected to interview because we've got just a lot of candidates. So we want to make sure that we're interviewing a cross section of our applicant pool. So that's a little bit about our Chancellor Scholarship. There was a question, and I can't locate it now, but someone asked a question about whether transfer students are eligible for the Chancellor Scholarship in the spring semester. It's a very specific question, a good one. We do have a select number of transfer students who are selected as transfer chancellor scholars, but they are reviewed in the late spring to start in the fall semester. So it's not a spring semester award. So that's just something to consider. Okay, next. Let's see. Billy Joe asks, what is the difference between subsidized, unsubsidized, and Cal loans? You mentioned the Cal loans already, but can you talk about subsidized versus unsubsidized loans?
Hi, Bill. So the subsidized and unsubsidized, those are both federal loans, and the college access loan is a state loan. Subsidized just means that the interest is paid by the government while you're in school, and unsubsidized, the interest accrues while the student is in school. Okay, both the subsidized and the unsubsidized, there are deferrals until after graduation for repayment to begin. But those are the difference between the three loans.
Excellent. Okay, next, let's see. Okay, Alyssa asks, is it possible to pay your enrollment deposit with the financial aid you received? And the answer depends on how much financial aid you received, right? So, Victoria, do you want to take on that one?
So the answer is, normally if a student is receiving full tuition, there is a process for waiving the tuition deposit. And you would probably need to contact the admission office to initiate that process. But for the most part, we share that information up front. So that happens sometimes without your knowledge. So Alyssa, if you are a full tuition student, certainly reach out to financial aid or the admission office, and we can take care of that for you.
Right. One other point, which I think is important, is while we will in some cases waive that enrollment deposit, it doesn't eliminate that amount of money that you would owe. All it does is it rolls it into the first bill that you would get when the invoice comes out during the summer. Okay, but it does help you at least sort of defray that cost and able to enroll at the university, which is exciting.
Awesome.
Okay, Victoria, Dave Bethay, I hope I'm pronouncing your last name right. Maybe it's Bethea. Dave, hi Dave. What if our student has not been able to take the SAT with COVID, both tests canceled? Should he take it for scholarship consideration? Dave, this is such a good question, and we get it all the time. If you're talking about a student who is a current senior in high school, the answer is no. We're past the point of giving out scholarship money based on those new test scores. But if your student is a junior and that test administration has been canceled, and you feel like that a strong SAT or ACT, for that matter, would help boost the student's profile, then I think it can be helpful to try to register for an exam. But to do it safely, I don't think you need to travel around the country to find the best site for you. If you can do it locally, that's fine. Again, it's not going to hurt the student not to have the test score. But again, if you feel like, you know what, I'm a reasonably good student, I'm competitive otherwise, but I know I can just get a great test score that's going to help in the holistic evaluation, then that's absolutely fine. Okay, Annette had a follow-up question, Victoria. She's asking, because she owns a small retail business that has been affected by COVID. She wants to know if she heard you right. Would they get financial aid or a scholarship preference for this unfortunate situation? So maybe if you can talk through that again.
So Annette, again, that's a special circumstance or a professional judgment process with our office. I would advise you to reach out. That the information you provide us will help us determine if your situation with COVID and the effect on your business will render additional aid. We don't want to just say yes or no without actually sitting down with you and looking through that information, because sometimes your income may change a little bit, and although it's drastic for your family, it doesn't affect the outcome of total aid that we can offer. So certainly reach out to our office and refer to the special circumstance process. Our team will reach out to you to assess that further.
Great. Okay, Victoria, Jill Grabowski Burgess would like to know, can I get merit scholarships without filling out the CSS profile, FAFSA, etc.?
So academic scholarship does not require, right? So academic scholarship does not require the completion of the FAFSA or CSS profile. But there are other merit scholarships offered at TCU, which it depends. Certain scholarship, we're looking at certain data points from the FAFSA or CSS profile. Our donor may have stipulations within the scholarship criteria that looks for data points within CSS and FAFSA information. So I would recommend that you go ahead and complete those applications so that allows for your student to be considered for all resources available, including merit scholarships or any other scholarships offered.
Excellent. Okay. Jana Woodard asks, if a student gets accepted into the Honors College, does it give them any financial opportunities such as scholarships or anything else? Great question, Jana. We have a fabulous Honors College at TCU, the John V. Roach Honors College, and that is a college that students actually have to apply to as part of their application process. After they hear about admission to TCU as a whole, they will then later find out if they've been accepted into the Honors College. It's competitive, and it's really designed for students who, as I like to put it, they love staying up late at night going down the Wikipedia rabbit hole. You know, they're the people who are just turned on by ideas, and they just want to click from link to link to link. And if you're a student who really loves the trying to find the connective tissue that links these seemingly disparate ideas, then the Honors College could be a great opportunity to enhance what is already a world-class education. There is no specific scholarship that is tied to the Honors College. Very often, students who are admitted to the Honors College are strong students and will have earned an academic scholarship through our normal process, but it's just not tied to it. And I'll say one other thing about it. This process of students applying to the Honors College is actually relatively new. We're about 2 or 3 years into it. Prior to that, students were just invited based on their application for admission, and we largely made that decision based on students' grades and test scores and curriculum strength and so forth. A lot of the same criteria that are used for scholarships. So in almost every case, a student who was invited to honors did get a scholarship. The Honors College, and we've worked really collaboratively with them over the last couple of years, was saying to us, look, those numbers, these metrics that we use are good, but sometimes it's really hard to determine a student's drive and grit through those numbers. And I would agree with that wholeheartedly. And so what we said was, we want students to sort of raise their hands and say, this is something I want to do, and I'm willing to put in a couple of extra essays to show this to you and to demonstrate how I can contribute to and learn a lot from the Honors College. The good news is it's achieved the goal of creating this community of scholars who really desperately want to be in the Honors College, even more so than before. But the flip side is it means there are a handful more students who didn't necessarily get a scholarship because it's not tied directly to the numbers. So I'm sorry if that was a longer answer than you really wanted, but there you have it. Okay, Victoria. Sunny Webb Bliss asks, is a PLUS loan subsidized or unsubsidized?
PLUS loan is unsubsidized.
There you go. That's quick. I love it. Okay. Let's see. Marilia Gabriel wants to know, what is the difference between the full payment and the payment plan when talking about payment options? Can someone pay the tuition in monthly installments? And I don't know. This is a financial services question, so I'm not sure if you're versed enough to answer that, Victoria.
Yes, there is a payment plan option for families, and unfortunately, I don't have like all the details, and I should be well versed on that. But we can get back to you, Mariella.
Okay. Jenny asks, when you get a TCU scholarship, does that include any FAFSA/CSS money that was given? And so the answer to that, Jenny, is that if, based on the financial aid forms, the university has determined that your EFC, or your expected family contribution, is, let's say, $12,000. I'm making that number up. and we give you a founder scholarship in that same amount, then yes, that scholarship would be used to meet your need. Okay, if you have need that exceeds the amount of the scholarship, you still may be eligible for then additional need-based monies. Would you say that's a fair statement, Victoria?
Absolutely.
Okay. Follow up to the Cal loan question from Brianna Valadez is, who is responsible for paying it back? When do payments start? Is the cosigner responsible, et cetera?
Okay. So the Cal loan is in the student's name. It is for Texas residents only. I'm trying to look up some information to help you in terms of the repayment process, and I don't have it offhand. But the student is responsible for paying that loan. Most of the time, though, there is a cosigner required for the college access loan, since most students don't have the finance to back up that loan. And so a parent or other folks may co-sign. And so the cosigner is also responsible if the student is unable to pay the loan back.
Thank you. Okay, next question is from Bailey Brock. And Bailey asks, does TCU accept outside scholarships or Indian Nation waivers?
Yes, TCU accepts outside scholarship. Now, outside scholarship may impact a student's total aid package. And so please be sure to talk to any financial aid office at the college that you're applying to as to the impact that would make to your other aid eligibility. Mainly, it will probably affect your total loan eligibility, possibly need eligibility as well. Now, in terms of a waiver, it depends on how that waiver is coming through. If it's coming through as cash payment, then that is acceptable. But TCU don't have a separate waiver process that, in terms of a partnership, that we would automatically waive for students.
Excellent. Okay. Let's see. Lisa asks a really great question that we get a lot, which is, what happens to the scholarship offers that went to students who ended up choosing to go to another university? So this is it's a wonderful question. The answer is really simple. We actually need some of those students to go to other universities. We give more scholarships than we actually have dollars for. I know that sounds crazy, but we have fairly sophisticated modeling that we do every year. And we know, based on historical data, what's the likelihood that a student might accept an offer of admission and scholarship from TCU, and what's the likelihood that they aren't going to. In most years, about 1 out of 4 students offered admission to TCU will accept our offer. We call that, in the enrollment industry, that's called the yield. Okay, the percentage of students who accept the offer. So our yield, 1 out of 4, is about 25%. That means 75% of students offered admission will make the mistake of going somewhere else. Just kidding. Will choose to go to another institution. I joke. There are a lot of wonderful universities out there. And so what that means is we're also offering more money than we actually have. And it would be a problem if everyone accepted their offer of admission and scholarship. So it's not like if Lisa, if you decide that you're not going to come to TCU, that you can take that TCU scholarship and hand it over to your friend. It doesn't work that way. It's a lot like the airline industry, right? They sell more seats than they actually have on the plane because they know that some people are going to change their flight at the last minute. So they slightly oversell. And admission and scholarship works largely the same way. Okay. Artie Johnson asks, how do I accept the scholarship award? So Victoria, do you want to talk about the process of how a student would go in and actually accept each element of an award package?
So, hi Artie, hope you're doing well. We do have an acceptance process. If you log into my.tcu, you will be taken to, there are various tiles. There's a tile that is noted financial aid. Click on that and it will take you into your student portal where you'll be able to accept your scholarship and any other aid offered.
Great. Wonderful. Okay, let's see. Joanna Posada asks, can students receive student loans if we don't have a cosigner or no credit?
Oh, I'm sorry. I was reading another comment.
Oh, well, here it is on your screen.
Hi, Joanna. If we don't have can a student receive student loans if we don't have a cosigner or no credit? So yes, you are able to receive, as long as you complete the Fafsa, and we've offered you direct loans through either subsidized or unsubsidized. Those loans do not require a cosigner. But if you apply for private loans, such as the college access loan or any other private loans that are offered to students, then most likely they will require a cosigner if you do not have credit.
Okay. Holly asks, are there specific scholarships or grants available for out-of-state students to lessen the cost of attendance, or something similar to WUI that we use here in Arizona? And for those who are unaware, WUI is sort of a collaborative of schools in the western part of the United States, where there's sort of a tuition sharing savings program. TCU does not participate. There are about 160 different colleges. TCU is not a participant in the WUI program. But Victoria, do you want to talk about the sort of, if there's a difference between in-state and out-of-state?
I'd like to touch on the WUI process a little bit. We are a partnership in the tuition exchange. And so if your institution is part of that, then tuition exchange may be an option, similar if your parents are employed at an institution that is a partner. Now, we don't have anything specific for out-of-state students through the regular aid process. We consider all students in a similar fashion with the completion of the CSS profile and the Fafsa, and that is how we award students. Now, there may be other scholarship opportunities listed through our Horned Frog Scholarship site that you'll be able to log on and submit an application. When you submit a general application, you'll be matched to scholarship opportunities that may reflect the criteria, credentials that you have.
Wonderful. Victoria, several people in the chat are asking again about sort of the accepting of the scholarship. And so it's just a simple question. Do you need to accept the offer of admission before you can accept your scholarship?
Yes. Well,
yes.
Yes. Yes, you do. Yes, you do. This will allow the opening of the portal that will take you in to my.tcu as a prospective student to accept your scholarship.
Great. Excellent. Okay. We are running short on time. We're going to try to get to a couple of more questions. Sonia has asked, if your student aid package has work study, are most kids able to find a job opportunities on campus?
Absolutely. We have a good number of work study opportunities available for students through our career services. So definitely reach out early on. For students who have not been offered federal work study, we also have student work study positions available through our career services as well. So those are options available. And yes, I haven't had a student tell me that he or she have not been able to secure a position.
Okay, let's have one last question. This is from Carrie Weaver. Hi, Carrie. Say hi to Paul for me. Our student has been accepted to TCU. Yes. And regularly receives snazzy swag in the mail. We love our TCU swag, but we haven't gotten our financial aid package yet. When should we expect that? So Victoria, can you give folks an update on where we are in the packaging of students? And if a student doesn't have one yet, what steps they might take to see if they've maybe completed all their forms or what they need to do next?
So there are certain requirements that needs to be met before an aid package can be made to a student. Make sure that your student has submitted the CSS profile as well as the Fafsa. Both applications must be on file for the aid process to happen. There are times when there are certain criteria that are flagged through the Fafsa that we are required to verify or document before we can proceed. TCU does not require the completion of a verification process before we package a student, but there are certain flags that are federal that has to be cleared before we can proceed. So Carrie, please reach out to me or to our team. Let us research further. And for those of you who haven't received your aid package, please reach out to us and let us research and help you through this process.
Okay, it is now 7 o'clock Central Time. Victoria, you need to get home. I know. Thank you so much. Wasn't this fun? Didn't that hour fly by?
Really fun. I can't believe it's already 7.
I know.
Come join me at my house for dinner.
What's for dinner tonight?
I don't know. I'm headed home, then I'll decide.
All right. Well, thank you for doing this. It was great fun, and thanks to everyone for joining us. We're going to be back next month, as you can see, for a discussion on course curriculum and the implications of that. And again, if you have any questions for the Financial Aid Office, you can contact them at finaid@tcu.edu. If you have questions for the Office of Admission, you can reach us at frogmail@tcu.edu, frogmail@tcu.edu. We hope you have a wonderful evening, and go Frogs.
Go Frogs.